go a little something like this.
Welcome to Talk About Your Period, the podcast where we do just that, talk about periods. I'm your host, Karen Daubert, and each episode I speak with fellow menstruators about how their menstrual cycle has impacted their lives. In a world that tells us to hide our pads and tampons, we're speaking out together to end the stigma. No one should feel ashamed to talk about their period. After all, it's just blood. Hi, and welcome back to Talk About Your Period, the podcast. I am really, really happy today because I am here with Jaya Amin. She is from Cry India, a nonprofit organization that ensures happy and healthy childhood for all of India's underprivileged children. Their focus areas are education, health, nutrition, protection and participation, and they work with partners across 19 states and India. So thank you so much for being with us, Jaya.
Thank you so much for having me here, Karen. Like it's such a wonderful thing to be here. Talking about this with you.
Yes, and it's been so fun connecting with you over the past, definitely over a month now.
Yes, absolutely over a month, and I think the all the conversation that we've had, it's just and the things that we want to do, and how we want to like the objective that we both like. You talk about your period and Cry has. I think it's syncing up well, and it's so great to see the kind of stuff that we're doing, and I'm just so excited for this.
Yes, me too. Now, I got in touch with Jaya because she reached out to me via DM a little while ago. And they, with Cry, the organization, they have been doing a Let's Talk About Periods campaign, a campaign that is the goal of the campaign is to help end period shame and just to help raise awareness about period issues for children, especially in India. And I'm really happy that you took the time to get in contact with me. We've had several, long distance Zoom meetings talking about the collaboration and what ways we can participate with each other to just get the word out about this wonderful cause. And it's funny, the first couple of meetings, it was very, very early for me. And today it's very, very early for Jaya. So Jaya, thank you for meeting with me so early in the morning. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much because I remember when we were talking and you told me that you told me that it's pretty super early and I was like, oh my God, that was so horrible. I used to feel so horrible to do that to you. So I was like, this has to stop. Like this has to end.
It's okay. We just did a little trading, right? We did a little back
Yeah,
and forth. I
yeah,
do
yeah, of
early, then you
course.
do early. Well, I appreciate you meeting with me so late, or so rather, so early for you. Um, Again, Jaya works for Child Rights and You of India, CRY as the acronym, and she is a senior manager of communications. Now, before we dig in, we are going to be talking with Jaya later more about CRY and their Let's Talk About Periods initiative and all the wonderful hard work they are doing to help increase period positivity and acceptance in India. We'll talk about that later, and I'm really excited to dig in. But just so we can get a little bit of an understanding about where you're coming from, Jaya, would you mind telling me how you got involved with Cry to begin with?
Sure. So I think the journey with Cry has been sort of like like a changing sort of a thing for me. I came across Cry at a point when I was really looking for a purpose driven job. Like I was looking for something that's going to be meaningful for me. And when I happened to sort of see Cry, it really took me back to this old memory of mine. So it was so funny when I was probably, I think, when I was in the fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade, my sister was a volunteer with Cry, and what they would do as a part of them volunteering with the organization back in the day, is that they would go to either to their societies or the buildings that they stay in. Then they would they would fundraise. Kids would fundraise for other kids, and so my sister was doing that, and she took me along, and I had no clue what this was. And I remember asking her, where are we going and what are we doing? And then she's just in simple words, she told me that, there are kids like you who actually don't have education, who don't get meals. So we're going to help them. And, you know, because it really didn't, like, it stuck with me that I was doing that with my sister. And after so many years, like after almost 10-15 years, when I saw Cry, and I was just sure that, this has come in my way for a reason, and I just knew that I wanted to be in it. And so it was it came to me at a point where I was looking for a change in a meaningful manner, and it happened. And what I love about Cry, Karen, I think it's how people work towards the cause. Like, they work for children every single day. Like, I have been with Cry for over 4 years now, and I think every single day there is, they just know that, they have to um, put in more efforts, do more for the children. And it's wonderful because I feel like that kind of, the kind of passion that they come with, for to work towards the children. I think that's beautiful. I think that's something that I go to work every day and I see that. And I feel like that's also a part of how we know that, we are going to sort of have fun. So I'm in the marketing and communications department. So my um, uh, touch point with kids, like, my FaceTime with kids is very, very, very limited. In if I have to compare it with the, like, somebody who gets to meet them probably on a regular visit or whatever. So, but I feel like it's still somewhere in the mind, somewhere when we are working, we know that we're sort of creating one small difference, if not like a lot. So I feel like that's something that is really, that really works, when we get up every day, and when we have to go to work, and when we have to, just on at times when it's absolutely, like, it's work after all. Like, after a point, you just become like, you're just like, oh my god, like, I need a break. And so I feel like those things really help at that time. But my journey with Cry has been nothing but of a wonderful experience. It's been absolutely wonderful. I have learned so much from the kids. So I did get an opportunity to, meet with the kids and visit certain projects, and talk to the kids. And they are so smart. They are so, you know they know about things, and they talk to you in such confidence, and they are very disciplined. And I feel like there's so much to learn from them when I'm meeting them. I feel like I am going to, I'm going to meet kids, and they are going to actually teach me a lot of things that I don't know about. And they're going to actually throw light on so many things that, I may not be aware about. And I feel that's wonderful. So I feel humbled to be working with Cry, with an organization that really, at the core of it, genuinely just wants to do good work for kids. And I feel like that's paramount for the organization. And I feel like if I'm contributing in any small manner towards that, I feel I just feel great about it.
Yes, and it's such a beautiful and noble cause that you're a part of, and you're definitely contributing a lot. You made connections with me. Just seeing all the work you guys have been doing for the Let's Talk About Periods campaign, just specifically. I just know how much outreach you guys have done, nationwide, globally, and it's so wonderful that you have found your calling and that you are so passionate about this kind of work, because I completely agree. It's so wonderful to see children in action. And I used to be a teacher. I used to teach 7th through 10th grade. Yeah. And honestly, the biggest takeaway is just the relationships with the students, with the kids, and you really do learn more about the world through them, just new perspectives. And it's just so wonderful to see when a child is being taken care of and all their basic needs are being met. It's just the potential for the children. It really just gives them ton new opportunities in life, lots of doors open up. So definitely the work that you guys are doing, just from, working with you for the past month, looking into all the initiatives you guys are doing throughout the entire organization. It's just such a really wonderful and such a needed, you know, thing. So I commend you for committing your life's work to this, and I completely agree. Cry's message is that, children are the future, and we need to make sure that we're giving children all the opportunities and making sure all their needs are getting met so that they can, be as successful and prosperous in the future as they can be, because that one day, like, they're going to be the ones taking care of our world. So I just think it's wonderful what you guys are doing.
Yeah, they are the backbone. Correct.
Yes. Yeah, they're the backbone. I really like that. It's so true. And just as a side note, something I really, really like about Cries, if you look at their website, cry.org, um, they talk about each of their initiatives, and kind of the foundation of the organization and what you guys try to focus on. And something I really resonate with, just as a parent, frankly, is you guys talk about how children are worthy of respect and dignity.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that really plays hand in hand with your Let's Talk About Periods campaign, because so much about accepting periods is also making sure that we're talking about it so that people who don't have resources and period products are able to get what they need, so they can have a dignified, comfortable experience on their periods, that they can continue going to school and things like that. And um, children are worthy of respect. They're equal human beings to us. And I just really commend Cry's initiative to really send that home. Like, kids need to be treated with respect and dignity. And so I'm just absolutely honored to be working with you, and just I'm so happy we were able to make this connection. And I'm excited to dig in today. So again, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, especially it being so early. And I'm excited. So, I'm so excited to talk to you today, Jaya, about your period and just learn a little bit more about you and what that was like for you growing up in India. Before we get started today, I do want to say that we don't want anyone using this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition, either in yourself or others, including but not limited to patients that you're treating. I'm not a doctor, and today we might talk about different information based on our own experiences, but none of it is medical advice. So please consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. So, Jaya, something that I like to ask my guests at the beginning of our conversation is I like to ask them a little bit about right now where it stands, what your relationship with your period is like as of now. So, if you could describe your period in one word, what would it be?
I think it's definitely not one word, but it's hot and cold for me. If I have to just, it's because I feel like my period behaves and then it doesn't. So there are months that it does, and then there are months that it doesn't. And so and um, I feel like it's giving me that the whole thing that okay, today this month I may not be in sync with what you want me to be, so I'll just be on my own. So I feel like my period is just has a brain of its own, and uh, works however it wants to. So there are days when it's absolutely like, I'm just like, yes, I can power through everything, and then there are months that I'm just like, not going to happen. So I feel like it's more of a the relationship would be, I feel, I think it could be more on in the lines of um it's if I have to describe one word for my period, I would say that it's I am a slave. I feel like I am the slave of my period, and however however that my period demands whatever of me, I just have to be at that. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that's hilarious. But I think a lot of people can relate to that. I really do. I think cuz so many of us, so much of our lives and our schedule is really dictated not just if we're on our period, but what kind of period we're having that month. I really relate to what you have to say about, some months it's really manageable and then some months it's not so manageable and it's really horrible, which it's interesting. So, my previous guests that I've brought onto the show, I had some guests that their period was either consistently like easy and not that bad or consistently horrible. And I kind of feel like I fit a bit more in with what you have to say because truly I do find my period and my period symptoms can be a little unpredictable. And that includes like period pain and my flow and how many period products I have to use and all of that. So that's really interesting. So, is this something where when you were younger, were you having more uncomfortable periods and then as you got older, they got, not so bad? Or has it always been very inconsistent like this?
I think if I have to, I think it's actually how you said about it, Karen. It's my period since the if since the time I've got it till today. I think it has become better. Like I remember there were days when I would just won't be able to get out of the bed, or maybe I am lying around in one of the corners because I am either feeling too cold or too hot. And the cramps were very, very non manageable. They were horrible. So I feel like over the years, it has become better for me. And I have friends who tell me that, um, it'll still get better. Like there will be a point where you'll not have cramps and the pain. So I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait for that. I really want to be at that stage. But definitely it's gotten better over years. I started off having cramps at a point where I would just be like, I can't take this and I won't be able to today, where I don't think it's bad, it's manageable. It's something that I think I can handle. But of course, I also want to rest it out. So I feel over the years, it's just become it's going it's not that horrible as it was back in the day when I was younger or when I had gotten my periods till till school and college. And I think it just kept getting better in every stage, I believe.
Oh, that's good to hear. What a relief that over time you found it to be more comfortable. Because for some people that's not the case. So I'm really happy to hear that you're finding, it's not always perfect, but I'm happy to hear that it's not as bad as it was when you first started menstruating. And, I'm so excited to have you on today because I really am so curious just about, how much there are cultural differences between, early menstruation experience for young girls and menstruators in India versus the US. And so I'm definitely very curious to talk to you a little bit about your first impressions of periods and what you had seen and heard just in your family or TV or just society in general. Um, so when it comes to periods, could you give me a little bit of a description about when you were around when you were younger, maybe before you started menstruating? Um, what's the general culture where you grew up specifically about periods? What's the tone of it? Is it something that is never spoken about? Is it spoke about only negatively? Is it a bit neutral? What was your personal experience hearing about periods for the first time?
I think it was, interesting. I was in a all girls convent school. So I think every one of us were very, very curious about or somebody getting their periods. And then we would say that, oh, that person got their periods. And, should we go and ask them how it was? Because we're all a bunch of kids who are curious to know that what periods is, do you have pain and how long does it last and so on and so forth. Because, you just want to know about these things. I feel I grew up in an environment where I was where I was talking about it, because luckily I have three elder sisters, and for me, like, my household was just like, filled with women, and so for us, me, my sisters, my parents, my friends, the school that I was in, I think we were sort of, made aware about what menstruation is, and how you can actually, what happens, and how much does it last. So I think the basic information I already had, but I remember still being very fearful. I remember still being absolutely unsure of what am I supposed to do, and what if it just comes out one day, where do I go and what do I do. So I had
Yes.
like really I had, before I got my menstruation, I had tons of thoughts in my head that, how am I supposed to like deal with this. And so, a funny story, like, even when I got it, even after knowing and talking and having those really curious conversations with my friends, when the first time that I got my period, I did cry. I was just like, why did this happen? I was I was so and, I was just like, I didn't ask for this. Like, I don't want this. So I remember being absolutely in absolutely sad about the part that I got my periods. And then, of course, like, my parents had to talk me through the fact that it's actually healthy, and you shouldn't. And it's just funny how my friends, when I think of the conversations I've had with my friends, and they used to think that periods are going to last every single day. And so there were these really, like, really small ideas that every all of us had as kids of periods, like, either it's going to last every single day, or it's going to come on the same day that you get your periods. So there were these really funny conversations that we would have. But the environment that I grew up in, luckily, it was not hushed about. It was not something that wasn't spoken about openly, or there were people who were available to talk to me about it, who were available to sit me down and explain the entire thing, and tell me that it's absolutely okay if you have any sort of discomfort, talk about it. And so, yeah, I think I was just lucky to have those people around me at a point where I was absolutely clueless, and I did not even want it. Like, I remember the first thought was like, I don't want this. So it was that for me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm happy to hear you had such a relatively positive, way of,
Yeah,
being introduced to periods.
yeah.
What a wonderful resource. An all girls school, having lots of sisters in the home. That's truly ideal for any young menstruators, just to have a group of people surrounding them, normalizing it and talking about it.
Yeah, but sorry. Can if I have to, even though even though you're in, if I was in I was in a all girls school, I feel even then there are, I have seen in fact, I have seen my friends, or even if I have to talk about myself, like, I have seen myself being too, like, being very shy about talking about periods in the first initial couple of years. I remember being absolutely shy, even though I had the support, even though I knew that I had people that I can talk to about. But I feel like that's a general tendency that because not everybody does that. Not everybody talks about it. So you also sort of get in that rhythm, and you see people being a little careful about talking about it. So you also become sort of like, you're also careful about talking about it openly in public. So I feel like initial years was that, for me as well, even though the surrounding or the support that I had was absolutely, absolutely there, and they were not asking me to not talk about it. But as an individual, I feel like the things that I saw, and the things that I sort of picked up on was that um, it's made me also feel uncomfortable, or like or think that maybe this is not something that you're supposed to talk so openly. So you need to, like, just either talk politely about it, or like be a little hushed about it. Don't sort of like have so many open discussions about how your flow is, or or how many times do you have to change your pad, so on and so forth. So I feel like it really depends on a lot of things, and it also depends on the person as well. Like, to an extent it does, but the society at large, I feel like, has a lot of role to play.
Yes, and I think you made an excellent point. I think young people really do learn um, about the hush hush nature of talking about periods in our society just by watching other people dance around the topic of periods. It's interesting. For example, in my own experience, I didn't really have any negative experience where someone was outright shaming me for talking about my period, but I learned to be quiet about periods by watching how other menstruators spoke, or rather didn't speak about their periods in certain environments. So I think it's really interesting that you brought that up because it's so true. When we observe how other people are handling the subject, even if we don't really feel ashamed in ourselves, it kind of teaches us as young people, oh, maybe I need to be careful about who I say this to, or oh, I need to be careful about when and where I'm speaking about this. There's certain places it's like deemed appropriate or not. Um, so yeah, I think that's really something to think about. Now, you did touch a little bit on you getting your first period and what that experience was like, but I was wondering if you could paint a picture for me of what that day was like for you. Do you have any strong memories of your first period?
Absolutely. I have vivid memory and clear memory of, when the day that I got my first period. It was a normal day for me. I came back from school, and, I was ready to go for my classes. And in between that, actually, no, I had come back from my classes, and it was in the evening, and I felt a bit of I was uncomfortable. So I went to the washroom. I saw blood, and I was just like, oh my god, like I was taken aback. I was just like, is this happening? Like, is this really happening? And I remember standing there, and I was just standing there in absolutely, I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing, and I'm frozen, and I'm just like, why? And I remember having thoughts like, why did this happen? Like, I did not ask for it, and I don't want this. I don't want the uncomfortable, how the whole sort of uncomfort that I am feeling right now. I don't want any of that. So I started crying because I was overwhelmed. Like, I was overwhelmed, and um, uh, then I went outside, and my parents saw me, and they saw me, and they were like, "What happened? What happened? Why are you crying?" They sat with me, and I told them that I got my periods, and so they also laughed about it because they saw me cry, and they were like, "You, why are you crying about that?" And then they sat me down, and they spoke to me, and they told me every single thing that I needed to know. This will be a month on month process, and you're healthy. That this means that you're healthy. You don't have to, worry about um, um, uh, it being sort of it being a total wreck for you, because it won't be. It's just a good sign that your body is healthy. And but I still remember that I kept crying to my parents, saying that I never asked for this, and I don't want this. I just don't want this. Like, every single month, I don't want to be, to have get to have periods every single month. So my first instinct, or my first few thoughts of periods was just like, um, I never asked for this, and I don't want this. Please take it away. And I don't want to, be in, like, I don't want to accept it. That was my first few initial thoughts, I would say. And then of course, like, over a period of time, I spoke to my friends, I spoke to a lot of people, and it just became better for me from there. But the first time that I got my periods, I was just not happy. I was absolutely not happy.
Oh, well, even though it maybe wasn't the happiest day, I am really happy to hear about how wonderful your parents were. They sound like they were just absolutely supportive and kind, and
Yeah.
it must have been very silly for them to see you, crying, and just because, as an adults, we know that it feels a lot bigger when we're younger and we get our first period, right? And then as we get older, it's just a part of life, and so I think that's actually quite a sweet story. And I am a little curious just about your perspective. So you shared that you were not ready for this, you did not want this, and you don't want to have to deal with this for almost the rest of your life every month. I'm a little curious. I had a previous guest kind of talk about how the reason they were unhappy about getting their period was because it kind of, in their eyes, they felt like it was like the end of their childhood, and that was like something that they were very sad about, and they weren't ready to like be perceived as a woman in society. And not everyone has that same viewpoint of it, but since you mentioned how much you were just felt like you weren't ready for it, what really was the motivation, or rather your mindset, behind really not wanting your period? Was it similar to my guest who said that it was the end of childhood, or was it more about like the inconvenience and the pain?
I think it was because I didn't know about the pain so much. So I think it had a role to play. But more than anything, it was the like I remember telling my parents that I don't want this because I want to keep playing around as much as I want to, like however I want to, and I don't want like periods to stop that. And of course, they told me that it's not going to, like you will still do every single thing that you are. And then I remember telling them that but the I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to carry the pain, or I don't want any of that. Like it is going to be end of one certain thing for me. So it was the end of childhood in my head back. Now when I'm looking at it, in retrospect, when I'm thinking of the things that I told my parents, I know that I was talking about that I don't want my childhood to end. I don't want to do things, while bleeding from one end profusely. Like I don't want that. Like the things that I said, that I just don't want to stop playing, and I don't want to, like I want to continue doing jumping around and doing things that I do. I was an active child. So I remember, like I was telling them all of those things. I was listing those things down in front of them, because I knew that there will be an end of certain things. I will need to, if I get my cramps, or if I get like really horrible pain, I won't be able to do certain things that I want to do. So I feel like I was not being accepting. I was not being able to accept that part of the that part where period came from, the part where I would have to let go of certain one particular part of my life. And in my head that time, I didn't know that it's you can still do it. You can still do every single thing what you do otherwise, and you can continue doing that even while you are on your period. So I feel like it was sort of similar-ish, but a bit of both, like a bit of losing my childhood, and also the part where I don't want to be uncomfortable and deal having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being so vulnerable, because I do believe that that's something that a lot of people, when discussing periods, I think it's a bit overlooked. I feel that when I hear a lot of narratives about periods and getting your first period, there's so much emphasis on the shock and the blood and the pain and the embarrassment in some cases. And I think there's not a lot of discourse or open discourse about people feeling hesitant to let go a part of their life behind. And of course, like you mentioned, now that we're adults, we've been doing this, you're exactly right. Periods don't stop you from doing anything. We can do anything on our periods. That's why we're so awesome. um, but truly, when you're young, there's really this fear of the unknown. We only know from what people have told us. And when you finally go through getting your first period, it is such a new experience that is going to impact the rest of your life. So I do think it's probably very typical, very normal for people to be just afraid of what if my life is different? What if I can't do the things I wanted to do and run around and not have to worry about things? So I appreciate you sharing that, just because I feel like that's not spoken about enough when it comes to discussing first periods. And you know, I'm happy to say with you too, I feel that now as an adult, I've had my period for what, like 15 years or so. I feel like I can get anything done on my period if I need to. And I'm very thankful for that. So I am a little curious as well. So as you were going throughout school and maybe even after high school, um, you did share that you had a lot of period pain. Was that Did that get in the way of you being able to go to school in any way? Did you have to miss days for pain? Or did you just kind of like fight through it?
I don't remember I don't remember not going to school. Like, I don't remember missing school days because of my periods. But I do remember missing a bit of a college or like a high school days because, the cramps were bad and the pain was bad. So, not so much in school, but definitely in high school and definitely when I was in college. I sort of the because the pain was so bad. I do remember, like, taking days off, like taking a day or two at the most off for to just recuperate and to just be at just feel normal. But I also want to just extend this and say that there were so many things as a child when you get your periods. There are so many things that go on, like, you're caught up with so many things inside your head. Like, for me, one of the things that I used to always think of was because we used to have physical training as one of our subjects, and we were asked to wear like white uniform for that. So I would always, always be in this fear that, oh my God, what if I stain my skirt? What will happen? Where will I go? And I had so much of, like, there were so many things running in my head that time that, I would also not want those things to be a part of my life. Like, I would just want to be free and not think of, if my skirt is stained, what am I supposed to do? People are going to look at me and they will know that I'm on my period. And are they going to, like, they will stare, and I don't want that. Like, I don't want that attention. So I feel like that is also a part of what goes on when you're young, when when you have to deal with so many things, and you just feel like I felt like it was just an added load that I did not want. And especially in especially at when people, when there are no open when there are no open dialogues about it, when there is, this is not normal. Like, people don't look at it as a way that, it's okay. Like, you don't need to stare at somebody who has stained their clothes, because it's absolutely normal. But unfortunately, that does happen. Like, people do stare, and then they say that, oh my God, like, they are a little they are a little awkward about it as well. And that ultimately makes you awkward, and makes you want to just go inside a rabbit hole. So I feel like that also was a large part of what I used to also every day think, and would want to sort of create scenarios and say that, what would I do in that situation? If I was in a situation like that, what would I do? So I would pre-plan my things, and I would have so many thoughts inside my head, and I would just be like, okay, if that happens, I'm gonna do these things. So yeah, as a child, I think I used to I would just like think of, I would preempt a lot of things relate when I was on my periods. And I would I would miss school days when, because the pain was really bad and I was not able to power through it. But there were days that really allowed me to just be as absolutely as I was when I was not on my period. So I think it was a mix of both for me.
I think you touched on some really good points. I think, it is, frankly, in our society, it's a privilege. While as wonderful as periods are, of course, like, I'm all about period positivity and learning to accept and work with our periods, it's a privilege to not have a period, because periods, are something that we have to learn to work with. We have to learn, how to take care of ourselves and take care of our blood. And I think I really resonated with your story about the white uniforms. A lot of your mind at school was being occupied by the fear of staining your clothes, and like you described, imagining different scenarios. How would I get out of this? How would I be able to cover myself up in this way? What would I do if this happened? And people who don't menstruate, like our young boys in school, they can just go to school. They can focus on friends and what they're doing. And I think it really goes as well, it goes on talked about how much energy, especially younger menstruators, a lot of their time and their mental energy is spent during their period worrying about staining or being caught or something embarrassing happen. And I think that goes hand in hand with, Cry's mission to end period shame, because the real issue there isn't staining. Like you said, stains are normal, they happen, but the issue is the period shame. We're afraid of being shamed for those stains, because stains will happen. They will always happen. There will never be a foolproof way to prevent all period stains for every menstruator every cycle for the rest of our lives, right? As much as we wish. And so if we were in a society where all around there was no embarrassment around periods, it's just interesting to think about how much less of our minds would have been occupied with anxieties about it, because we wouldn't be so fearful, because staining wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So I think it's definitely something to think about. I've had people share with me in America, um, acquaintances, that they don't really feel like period shame is a problem. And I disagree. Um, I feel that just because some people feel comfortable talking about periods, I that doesn't mean there's not a problem across the board. The way I like to put it for people is everyone's fine, like so-called fine, talking about cramps and discomfort and even period products, but once we start talking about the blood and the stains and the mess, that's when people start to get really uncomfortable. And that's a problem, because the blood is the root. That's the period, right? So I think we've got a long way to go. And I do hope one day we'll be at a place where young people aren't so afraid of leaking, that it is considered something normal. And, I think we're getting there. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of work. But,
Yeah, definitely, Karen. I totally agree with you. I think it's definitely going to take a while, but we're at that point, and we're probably this could be a start, or we're in the middle, but we're definitely talking about it, and as opposed to what we used to do back in the day, at least. So I think like it will definitely take a lot of time for us as a community, as adults who've gone through it, people who are, aware about things, and who actually need the young generation to know that, this is something shouldn't be, that's absolutely normal and shouldn't be looked at from a point of view that, I don't think I want to talk about it, or like, this is not something that I want to discuss openly with my friends or with my family. I think it shouldn't be that. I think that shyness. I think that the thought that we usually have that, I don't want to discuss this with anybody. I feel like that needs to be sort of course, it's a personal choice that when you're uncomfortable about something, you don't, you don't necessarily talk about it. But if you're uncomfortable about it because the society is making you uncomfortable, that's something that I think we need to sort of come together and correct that. I totally agree with you that we're on that, but we'll sort of we still have a long way to go.
Yes, I completely resonate with what you had to say. And I am a big believer in that too. A big part of my podcast and my values, for, my mission statement of what I do with Talk About Your Period, is that all period experiences are valid. Everyone has a different relationship with their period. And some people are very comfortable with their period and they have a very good relationship. There's other people who really have a difficult time. Either they really hate bleeding, the pain, or even just they really feel disconnected from their period. Every person's different, and all those experiences are valid. However, I feel exactly the same way as you do. Everyone has their own right to feel, maybe for their own personal, it's like maybe periods are more of a private thing. That's totally fine, respectable, understandable. But I agree. If that is coming from a place of shame, embarrassment, and feeling like you need to silence yourself in order to not be ostracized, that's where the problem is. So it's all about making sure that people, if they so choose to talk about their periods, they have the space to do that without judgment. Jaya, it's been so wonderful talking to you today, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing such vulnerable and intimate stories from when you were younger and what your mindset was like when you were going through menstruation for the first time. It sounds like over time you were able to have less period pain, and therefore, while it can be a little inconsistent at times, it does sound like your relationship with your period is better now than it was when you were first menstruating, especially how much you emphasize that you were so disinterested in having a period. It seems like from what you're saying now, you're more at terms with it. You've come to terms with it. Um, but there's always a question I like to ask at the end as well. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So my question is this: if you could talk to someone who hasn't had their period yet, what's one piece of advice you could offer them?
I think I would say that this doesn't change anything, and every little doubt that you have in your head uh, will will be sort of like you will go from one end to the other, and when you look back at that you will realize that it's not a big deal at all. Like, it's really not, and it will get better over time. Like, you just have to give it time, and it's not going to be such a big deal. Like, it's not going to be a big deal. It'll be like as though it'll be as smooth or um as much as it's actually going to be like your so it's going to be so ingrained in you that you'll not even realize it after a point. Like, it'll become a part of you, like your breathing. So I feel like I'm just going to tell them to relax and feel everything that they want to feel, because it's not like if you tell somebody to sort of like not think about it, they'll not. So I would say that think everything, feel everything, hate it or love it, do all of that, but just know that it's going to get better, and nothing changes. Absolutely, there's no change that you'll sort of like, nothing that will stop you from doing anything. When I say nothing changes, I mean like nothing that's going to stop you from doing anything because you're on period, because you got your periods. It's just that you have to give it time, and you'll know that it's something um that just becomes a part of you, and you will learn to accept it. And yeah, it's just that I think if somebody would have told me back in the day that it's okay, it's going to be all right, I would have told them that no, this is not, I am going through it, and I don't think that it's going to get all right. So I feel like it's not so much of like telling someone that it's going to be all right, but just that they need to feel it, they need to like sort of go through that and know for a fact that it is all right. And it's not going to you know it's not going to hamper your life in any way. Like, um, it's not going to create ruckus for you. It's not going to do anything bad to you. It's a healthy thing to have.
Wow, I think that was so beautifully said, and I'm actually taken aback. There's something you said that like really moved me, and I've just never heard it put into words. And you said that it'll become like breathing. And I was like, whoa, it like made me tear up a little bit. And I usually don't get so emotional about periods, but wow, like that, I've just never heard it that way. And it's so profound. It's like, for us who menstruate, we're just taught just in so many facets of our lives and just experiences and what's said in movies and TV and what's seen and what's not seen, that periods are gross, messy, dirty, smelly, unattractive, something that needs to be hidden. And so for you to just put into words that it's, you should feel it all and you should embrace it for what it is. And just that, the way you said that it's like breathing, I really just thought that really, encapsulates how beautiful periods are. And I know everyone has a right to feel how they feel about their own period. But as someone like me who embraces their period, that's just so beautiful because it's an integral part of who we are. We menstruate, there's nothing we can do about it, and it's so attached to who we are that it's as natural and innate and life-giving as breathing. And so wow, like I'm gonna save that one, Jaya. Like that was really, really good.
Thank you. I just feel like it's over the years that I have just sort of like you mentioned, like over the years I have just sort of embraced it, and I think like it's a part of who I am. Like I'm not, and it's exactly how I wake up every day, breathe. It's exactly like that. So I feel like in my head it has been that for a very long time now. So I'm glad, like I'm super glad that I so there are days when I actually, when I actually bitch about my periods, like when I'm just like, being absolutely moody and I want to like just be like, why did this happen? But there are days, and then immediately after like a couple of days, I sort of like, talk to myself and say that I don't want to, say these things to myself because I'm glad that I'm healthy. I'm grateful that, my body is sort of um, giving me things, and it's taking care of me. So I really I am grateful. Like over the years I've just realized that it's a part of, it's an integral part of who I am. So yeah, I totally like it's just it's a thing in my, I have had that thought for a very long time now. So I feel like it is like breathing for me.
Well, I just think that's such an optimistic and positive and true way of looking at it. And um I'm happy you shared that because I think that'll stay with me for a long time. I just thought you put that so well. So I appreciate you, sharing your thoughts. Well, Jaya, I've really, really enjoyed having you here, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know you over the past like month and a half or so. And I'm really happy we were able to make this happen. I appreciate you again coming on and talking about, your own personal stories. I really believe that just by us sharing our experiences, even, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it may be, it helps in just inviting others to feel more comfortable talking about their periods. And hopefully we can inspire young people who might be feeling a little uneasy, a little wary, or scared or nervous that, like you said, this is no big deal. It's all good. It's going to get better and it's going to be a part of your life and it's going to be second nature. So I appreciate you coming on and talking with us. I'm going to have another episode with Jaya. We're going to talk a little bit more about the wonderful organization that she works with, Cry Child Rights in You in India. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Let's Talk About Periods campaign that they've been working on and all the ways that they are really helping kids have, education and access to period products and period education. So, again, thank you so much, Jaya. I appreciate you being on today. Thank you so much for listening to Talk About Your Period. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, and if you liked what you heard, please consider leaving a kind review. If there is anyone you know who would enjoy or benefit from listening to this podcast, please spread the word. You can follow Talk About Your Period on all social media platforms, where I recap previous episodes and share information about upcoming guests. Do you have a story to share? Go to talkaboutyourperiod.com to fill out my interest form and let's get you on the podcast. I hope this podcast inspires you to talk about your period with others. After all, it's just blood. I would like to thank my guest today, and I would also like to thank my editor, Neil Titus, for editing this episode and creating the show music. Don't forget to subscribe to Talk About Your Period on your favorite podcast streaming platform, and I'll talk to you next time.